Roll call.
Senate roll call, 15th Legislative Day, Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Anderson? Here. Baldwin? Here. Barlow? Here. Beitman? Here. Boner? Here. Bouchard? Brennan? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Dockstetter? Here. Ellis? French? Here. Murphy? Here. Garou? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? Here. Ide? Here. Jones? Here. Kinski? Cole? Present. Landon? Here. Larson? Here. McEwen?
Excused.
Excused. Nethercott? Here. Pappas? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Cooper?
Excused.
Excused. Kinski?
Here.
Present. And President Driscoll.
Here.
29 present, 2 excused.
Thank you. Prayer by Reverend Mark Marston, First United Methodist.
Let us pray. Our Lord in heaven, we ask on this day that you might guide our footsteps, that you might be with us in this grand place that we occupy, just as the great people who have gone before us. We ask that you might give us courage, that as we come before you this day, that we may have compassion to hear the voice of the voiceless, wisdom to hear truth, strength to endure, patience to hear, and to truly listen to each other. For these things we pray through Jesus Christ. Amen and amen.
Pledge, Senator Pappas.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading, correction, approval of journal.
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of January 30, 2023 has been read and recommends it to be approved. Senator Larson, Chairman.
Any objections? Being none, reports adopted. Today in Wyoming history, this is a good one. UP's Tater Train, which was a 10-car potato exhibit and demonstration train, tours southeastern Wyoming in 1940. Lost in Idaho and still there. When you hand good people possibility, they do great things. Today at 5 p.m. is the deadline for second reading amendments to the budget, Senate File 1. So if you got them, please, if you guys got amendments, get them as early as you can. It's important for the staff that they don't work till midnight numbering amendments. So whatever you've got, bring them. Friday is the last day for bills to be reported out of the committee in the House of Origin. So we've got a little bit of committee work to go. Once again, reminder on your ethics disclosure statements. I think most of you have got them through. Let's remind Senator McEwen when he gets here that his is one of them. So let's make sure we get those in, get that done. Now, I have a resolution and we let him get away here. I played hooky on Friday and it's my bad. I apologize. Senator Salazar, this is a resolution for your son and I'm gonna have you take it home, but I'm gonna go ahead and read it. We're not just gonna send it home. We're pretty proud of what he did here. We thank all of the pages that help us. So, joint resolution, the undersigned members of the 67th Legislature of the state of Wyoming, recognizing Josh Salazar for his commitment to family service in the state of Wyoming. Whereas Josh is a bright and exceptional resident of Riverton. Whereas Josh is an avid learner who excels at home as a homeschool student And whereas, when not learning at home, Josh volunteers as a ranch hand and participates in Taekwondo. I guess we don't want to fight with him any. Whereas Josh is a devoted student of history and hopes to make history himself as a future author. And whereas Josh has enthusiastically served as a page for the Wyoming Senate during the 67th Legislature, State of Wyoming, and whereas the success of the State of Wyoming, the strength of our communities, and the future of our country depend on the dedication of young people like Josh Salazar, who contribute their skills and talents for the betterment of our communities, our state, and our world. Now therefore be it resolved by the undersigned members of the 67th Legislature of the State of Wyoming that on behalf of the State of Wyoming, we hereby congratulate and honor Josh for his work ethic, tenacity, and commitment, and extend best wishes for his future happiness and success. Signed, Ogden Driscoll, Albert Summers. Here's to Josh, everybody. All right, now, I know you guys are excited. This is a reward for your good work. This is the entire product of the other side so far. We're just starting. So, House bills on first reading. House Bill 14, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 14, Civil Case Filing Fees Amendments, sponsored by the Judiciary Committee. Passed the House, ayes 35, noes 26, excused 1.
House Bill 14 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 15, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 15, County Authority to Dissolve Museum Boards, clarification, sponsored by the Judiciary Committee. Passed the House, ayes 39, noes 22, excused 1.
House Bill 15 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 90, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 90, engrossed, sex offender registration requirements, sponsored by Representative Knapp. Passed the House, ayes 50, noes 11, excused 1.
House Bill 90 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 94, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 94, engrossed, Board of Parole, Wyoming Residency, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez Williams. Passed the House, ayes 59, noes 2, excused 1.
House Bill 94 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 96, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 96, engrossed, Transfer on Death Deed Insurance Coverage, sponsored by Representative Cragel. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 96, House Bill 96 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 97, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 97, engrossed, Chancery Court Jurisdiction Amendment, sponsored by Representative Stiff. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 8, excused 1.
House Bill 97 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 111, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 111, engrossed, Endangering Children, Fentanyl, sponsored by Representative Oakley. Passed the House, ayes 59, noes 2, excused 1.
House Bill 111 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senator Landon, you've got work. House Bill 112, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 112, engrossed, Theft, Penalty for Theft or Subsequent Offense, sponsored by Representative Oakley. Passed the House, ayes 54, noes 7, excused 1.
House Bill 112 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill Number 3, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 3, State Assessment of Independent Power Producers, sponsored by the Corporations Committee. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 7, excused 2.
House Bill 3 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 24, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 24 engrossed, State Investments, Compensation and Relocation Amendments, sponsored by the Capital Finance Committee. Passed the House, ayes 49, noes 12, excused 1.
House Bill 24 is referred to Committee Number 2, Judiciary. House Bill 51, first reading of the House Bill. Number 2, Appropriations, I am sorry. House Bill 24 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations.
House Bill 51, Legislator Constituent Service Allowance, sponsored by the Management Council. Passed the House, ayes 38, noes 28, ayes 33, noes 28, excused 1.
House Bill 51 is referred to Committee Number 2, Judiciary, or Number 2, Appropriations. Where? I got my mind in a bad place here. House Bill 64, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 64, Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account Obligations, sponsored by the Capital Finance Committee. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 64 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 181, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 181 engrossed, Online Sports Wagering Amendments, sponsored by the Appropriations Committee. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 8, excused 1.
House Bill 181 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 26, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 26, School Facilities Appropriations, sponsored by the School Facilities Committee. Passed the House, ayes 49, noes 12, excused 1.
House Bill 26, referred to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 28, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 28 engrossed, Community College Capital Construction, sponsored by the Education Committee. Passed the House, ayes 48, noes 13, excused 1.
House Bill 28 is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 70, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 70, Definition of Home-Based Educational Program, sponsored by Representative Neiman. Passed the House, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1. It's Representative Nyman, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. I was going to correct you. Now I don't have to. House Bill 70 is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 16, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 16 engrossed, State Land Leasing Improvements, sponsored by the Agriculture Committee. Passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 16 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 17, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 17 engrossed, State Lands Grazing of Non-Owned Livestock, sponsored by the Agriculture Committee. Passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 17 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 20, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 20 engrossed, Land Exchanges Noticed, sponsored by the Agriculture Committee. Passed the House, ayes 52, noes 9, excused 1.
House Bill 20 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 21, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 21, State Lands Use of Land Qualification Requirements, sponsored by the Agriculture Committee. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 21 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 22, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 22 engrossed, State Land Lease Deficiencies Cure Process, sponsored by the Agriculture Committee. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 22 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 76, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 76 engrossed, Licensing Board's Amendments, sponsored by Representative Zwanitzer. Passed the House, ayes 48, noes 13, excused 1.
House Bill 76 referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 93, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 93 engrossed, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, sponsored by the Water Committee. Passed the House, ayes 56, noes 5, excused 1.
House Bill 93 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 83, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 83, Tribal Agreements to Hunt and Fish, sponsored by Representative Larson, passed the House, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1.
House Bill 83 is referred to Committee Number 6, Travel. House Bill 104, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 104, engrossed, Hunting of Predatory Animals Amendment, sponsored by Representative Haroldson, passed the House, ayes 54, noes 7, excused 1.
House Bill 104 is referred to Committee Number 6, Travel. House Bill 18, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 18, Missing Person Alert System, sponsored by the Tribal Relations Committee, passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 18 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 47, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 47, Election Equipment Federal Certification, sponsored by the Corporations Committee, passed the House, ayes 33, noes 27, excused 2.
House Bill 47 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 73, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 73, engrossed, Annexation Vote Requirement, sponsored by Representative Stivart, passed the House, ayes 39, noes 22, excused 1.
House Bill 73 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 86, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 86, engrossed, Disclosure of Private Cryptographic Keys, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee, passed the House, ayes 55, noes 6, excused 1.
House Bill 86 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 106, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 106, Eminent Domain Wind Energy Collector Systems, sponsored by Representative Slagle, passed the House, ayes 41, noes 20, excused 1.
House Bill 106 referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 134, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 134, engrossed, Alcohol Sales to Licensees, sponsored by Representative Namely, passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 134 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 142, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 142, engrossed, Notice of Annexation, sponsored by the Representative Western, passed the House, ayes 59, noes 2, excused 1.
House Bill 142 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 39, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 39, Verifying the Veteran Designation on a Wyoming Driver's License, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 39 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 41, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 41, engrossed, Lightweight Trailers Permanent Registration, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 41 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 45, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 45, Peace Officer Retirement and Rehiring, sponsored by the Transportation Committee, passed the House, ayes 53, noes 8, excused 1.
House Bill 45 is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 50, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 50, Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program Funding, sponsored by the Minerals Committee, passed the House, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1.
House Bill 50 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 61, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 61, engrossed, Source Material Associated with Mining Agreement, sponsored by the Minerals Committee, passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 61 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 69, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 69, Coal-Fired Facility Closures Litigation Funding Amendments, sponsored by Representative Larson, passed the House, ayes 55, noes 5, excused 2.
House Bill 69 is referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 82, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 82, Defendant Mental Illness Examination Amendments, sponsored by Representative Larson, Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 82 is referred to Committee Number 10, Labor Health. Reports from standing committees.
January 30, 2023. Mr. President, your committee number 4, Education, to whom was referred Senate File 133, Student Eligibility in Interscholastic Sports, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Beitman, Brennan, Scott, and Steinmetz. No, Senator Rothfuss. Senator Beitman, acting chair. January 31, 2023. Mr. President, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 120, Restoration of Civil Rights, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Excused, Senator Guru. Senator Kinski, chairman. January 31, 2023, Mr. President, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 132, Study of K-12 Education Program, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Excused, Senator Guru. Senator Kinski, chairman. January 31, 2023, Mr. President, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred Senate File 143, Wyoming Freedom Scholarship Act 2, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Anderson, Kinski, and Salazar. Noes Senators Guru and Nethercott. Senator Kinski, chairman. January 31, 2023, Mr. President, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 139, Unlawful Use of a Charge Card or Debit Card, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Boner, chairman. January 31, 2023, Mr. President, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 176, Solid Waste Disposal Districts Consolidation, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Baldwin, Ellis, Guru, Jones, and Schuler. Senator Schuler, chairman. January 31, 2023, Mr. President, committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 173, Financial Institutions, Similar Names, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Baldwin, Ellis, Guru, Jones, and Schuler. Senator Schuler, chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Senator Case and Senator Scott.
Mr. President, I request that Senate File 160, Tolling Authority for I-80, be re-referred from Committee Number 8 to Committee Number 7.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator Scott.
Mr. President, Senate File 133, Student Eligibility in Interscholastic Sports, which was just read in, has an appropriation in it. Pursuant to Senate rules, I ask it be re-referred to the Appropriations Committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is passed. Senator Ide. This, what? Wait a minute. Without objection, I might object.
Are you gonna object?
I'm thinking about it.
Give it some thought.
I saw the conference going on.
Committee of the Whole, please come to order. First bill for your consideration is Senate File 169. Will the reading clerk please read the Senate file?
Senate File 169, State Shooting Complex Task Force, sponsored by Senator Hicks, an act relating to the administration of government. It was referred to Committee Number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes Senators Anderson, Guru, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Senator Kinski, chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator Kinski.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a due pass recommendation on Senate File 169. And for an exposition of this bill, I will turn to the prime sponsor, Senator Hicks.
And we're looking forward to that exposition. Senator Hicks, to you.
Mr. Chairman, there is a standing committee amendment. Could I have that read in at this time?
Sure can.
Senate File 169, Standing Committee Amendment to Number 1, page 7, line 2, delete.
Senator Hicks.
So, Mr. Chairman, just a real quick background on this bill. Wyoming has been taking the lead on a lot of the shooting sports and manufacturing of firearms and accessories in this state. This is an opportunity for the state of Wyoming to step up and take another giant leap in leadership role. Mr. Chairman, there's a number of facilities in different states that attract both regional, statewide, national, and international shooting sports competitions. What we envision here is through this task force is developing a recommendation for a world-class shooting sports facility here in the state of Wyoming, Mr. Chairman. A destination type facility that people fly in to come and compete at competitions from around the state and around the world for this facility. And so, Mr. Chairman, just to walk you through, what this bill does is establishes the Wyoming State Shooting Complex Task Force. Just going to walk through, really creates the task force. The memberships on the task force, Mr. Chairman, include the governor, his designee, director of the Game and Fish Department, director of the State Parks and Cultural Resources, director of the Department of Tourism, 2 members from the firearm, archery, or firearm accessory manufacturing companies, 1 member from an entity representing shooting sports that's represented in Wyoming, 1 member of a hunting or wildlife conservation organization that has a presence within the state of Wyoming, 2 members of the House, 2 members of the Senate. Mr. Chairman, that's the task force. The work of the task force will develop a framework for the selection of a location of a Wyoming State shooting complex. To accomplish that chore, Mr. Chairman, what they will do is first review some of the facilities within the region to get an idea of the capacity and the scope. Mr. Chairman, we're talking about shooting ranges that go out to 200 meters, over a mile, and associated with all of the shooting sports from black powder, short guns, pistols, rifles, archery equipment. Again, create a world-class destination. This task force would then go, after reviewing these facilities, develop a proposal for local governments, private sectors, or a combination of entities proposed to submit an RFP or a request for proposals back to the task force for consideration. Once those RFPs have been received, that task force would then review all of those and then make a recommendation on the development, the location, and the administrative structure. It's not predetermined yet whether this would be a private facility, a local government facility, a state park. This task force would make a recommendation back to the legislature, Mr. Chairman. They also report to the Joint Appropriations Committee, the Travel, Recreation, and Wildlife Committee, and also the governor. So, Mr. Chairman, if you flip over to page 5, this task force will provide that input back. This task force is sunset for June 30th of 2026. Hopefully they have their work done a lot sooner than that. And then, Mr. Chairman, I just want to turn over to the fiscal note so people understand what we're doing here. So if you go to the back page, there's $45,000 that pays for salary per diem and travel expenses for legislative members, and then $40,000 for appointees by the governor. And then what we're looking at is potentially a $5 million appropriation of ARPA funds. I will tell you, I'll probably be bringing a second reading amendment on this, Mr. President. We don't know that this facility would be available for ARPA Direct. We're researching right now whether they would be available for ARPA Permissible. The other funding, Mr. Chairman, would come from $2.5 million from the Wyoming Tourism Reserve account. And Mr. Chairman, then we get to the standing committee amendment.
We have read that in, but we have not moved it. If you'd move that, Senator Hicks.
So I move standing committee amendment number 1, the Senate File 169. This basically goes into the fiscal note where it talks about contributions from the Wyoming Game and Fish department, and this language brings in and it strikes out the 650,000 and inserts 2,500,000 may be allocated upon approval of the Wyoming Game and Fish Commission. That was a recommendation from the department to include that language that would allow them to use all sources of fund, including some of their federal potential Pittman-Roberts funds if they decided to apply for those for this purpose. Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions on the Standing Committee Amendment number 1, I'd ask for the question.
Any questions or discussion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 169? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Hicks' motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate File 169, please say aye.
Aye.
Very enthusiastic. Those opposed, no. No. That amendment has been adopted. Back to you, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, there is a Committee of the Whole amendment, and I'd like to draw that amendment at this time.
All right, let's have it read in.
Senate File 169, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 1 above, line 1 in.
Senator Hicks,
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 169.
without objection, it has been withdrawn. Back to you on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, questions on the bill?
All right. Senate, any questions on Senate File 169, State Shooting Complex Task Force? Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Kinski's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a do pass recommendation on Senate File 169, please say aye. Those opposed, no? Senate File 169 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 127. Will the reading clerk please read the Senate file?
Senate File 127, Wyoming Stable Token Act, sponsored by the Blockchain Committee, an act relating to trade and commerce. It was referred to Committee Number 2, which returned to, first referred to Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Cooper, Dockstader, Ellis, Jones, and Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman. Was re-referred to Committee Number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Guru, Kinski, Nethercutt, Salazar. No, Senator Anderson. Senator Kinski, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? We are, there we go. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, to do so with favorable recommendation of Senate File 127. Here to explain it, Senator Rothfuss.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Senate File 127, Wyoming Stable Token Act, is a product of the Select Committee on Blockchain during the interim. Mr. Chairman, this legislation was brought through both chambers last year and passed both chambers successfully, but had some concerns down with the executive branch. We reworked during the interim to address some of those concerns. And effectively, what was done for the blockchain stable token itself is nearly identical to what we did last year. What was reworked is the administrative aspect of it and how it's implemented. So I'm going to go through a little bit at the high level for those that aren't necessarily familiar with this and didn't benefit from the debate last year, and then we'll walk through the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, just real quickly, there is a standing committee amendment, and I'm sure you'll get to that
Yes, sir.
in due time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Wyoming Stable Token Act is a concept that we've developed over the last 2 years to create a digital token, which is a type of cryptocurrency, where a US dollar that is held in trust by the state of Wyoming, so that's an important concept, the state would hold a real dollar and would trade a stable token for that real dollar to allow transactions on a blockchain through a cryptocurrency mechanism. The reason that's important is because the real dollar is the value. The cryptocurrency is a digital representation of that US dollar held in trust by the state of Wyoming. So where we see concerns and have seen concerns over the past couple of years with cryptocurrencies, the intent of this legislation is actually to address those concerns because they typically come from the concept that this cryptocurrency doesn't have underlying value, a true asset behind it. And there's a tremendous demand to have the ability to use a virtual currency or a cryptocurrency on a blockchain, but have confidence and trust that that asset is actually worth what it purports to be worth. That's the point of the Wyoming Stable Token, is to bridge that gap, to provide an instrument that can be used with these digital transactions. There's a lot of demand for that. Wyoming has been a leader in this space through the Blockchain Select Committee and the task force before it. But there hasn't been an instrument yet where there's a tremendous amount of confidence that people can have, that again, when they go to cash in that asset, it will actually have the value, or that the volatility of the value of that asset won't be so high that it actually isn't worth what they wanted it to be worth when they were buying that cup of coffee with it. So, Mr. Chairman, what this Stable Token Act does is create a commission, where that commission is, as you'll see on the bottom of page 3, a body politic and corporate operating as an instrumentality of the state of Wyoming, consistent with any other commission. On to page 4, it has appointees by the governor, the auditor, and the treasurer, as well as up to 4 experts in this space that may be voting members of the commission. So you've got a 7-member commission that provides oversight for the implementation and operation of the stable token. On to page 5, we see the key concept that I want to bring everyone's attention to on lines 10 through 14, because this is essential. A Wyoming stable token is a virtual currency representative of and redeemable for $1 United States dollar held in trust by the state of Wyoming. Stable tokens shall only be issued in exchange for United States dollars. So, a dollar is traded for a Wyoming stable token. At some point, if desired, a Wyoming stable token is traded for that dollar. You'll see that in a later part of the legislation. That's it. It's always worth $1. It's not worth more. It's not a security. It's not worth less. It's not a risk. It's $1. And that's the key value that this legislation through the Blockchain Select Committee provides. You see powers of the commission, bottom of page 5 onto page 6, is to provide the opportunity to carry out the purpose of this act, and they'll be doing that through financial institutions, professional services, engaging with contractees to implement technology that's already readily available, but ensuring that we're using the best available technologies and working with professionals within the state of Wyoming to implement these concepts. Bottom of page 7 and on to page 8, additional responsibilities, but the Romanet 2 on page 8 is a critical concept that is a requirement that this commission oversee and review and audit the operations and transactions implemented pursuant to this act. It'll be continuously audited to ensure that the assets that are held in trust are there and that they are appropriately complementary to the stable tokens that are issued. As we look at the stable token accounts, we get into a couple of other key concepts. You see this on page 8 on to page 9. The Wyoming Stable Token Trust Account is created. This is an account where when dollars come in, all of those dollars will go into the trust account. And then the value of that trust account, you'll see on page 9 at the top, will be invested exclusively in U.S. Treasury bills. I'm going to say that again. There's only one thing that these dollars can be invested in, and that is U.S. Treasury bills. The highest security, lowest risk asset, non-cash, that can be acquired. Their rates have never gone negative at any point in the history of the country. So this is the surest thing of assets that we can invest in, and it is the only asset that a Wyoming stable token can be backed by, and that is what is standing for the security. When I have $1 that I trade for a stable token, Mr. Chairman, I know that that stable token is either in cash or in a U.S. Treasury bill. No third option, and it will be continuously audited to show how that is being held. On page 9, the B paragraph indicates that not less than 100% of the notional value of all outstanding issued Wyoming stable tokens shall be maintained in the Wyoming Stable Token Trust account. It can never go below 100%. And in fact, you see lines 14 through 18, the intent is to build it up to 102% through revenue off the treasuries, so that it's not just backed at a 100% surety, but has a 2% buffer in case there's liquidity needs, or in case there is the never-before-seen decrease in rates of the treasuries, a potential run on it. That 2% would allow a full repayment of the value of the trust. Bottom of page 9 onto page 10 is an administration account for the Wyoming Stable Token. This is where the operations would occur, and the operations and the expenses will come from the revenue off of the treasuries that are invested through the trust dollars. Bottom of page 10, the Romanet 3 is a key provision which indicates how revenue that is earned off of the yield from the treasuries is spent. First priority you see is that it's going to go to repaying a $500,000 loan that gets this program off the ground. We'll see that as the appropriation at the end. That's the startup funds. And then after that, any additional revenue would be equally transferred on a quarterly basis into the Common School Permanent Fund Reserve Account, the School Foundation Program Account, and the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund Reserve Account. At current rates, yields on even these treasury bills are above 2%. So if there was a substantial amount of these issued, we would be bringing in rather significant revenue to provide backing for the program, as well as provide additional funding resources for the state. The redemption provision on page 10 on to page 11 is an important consideration, which indicates that one Wyoming stable token shall be redeemable for $1 United States upon demand as set forth by rule and regulation. And then it provides some liquidation concepts where if the funds are called upon immediately by rule, there would be either an opportunity to pay the funds at the full dollar or the total value of the liquidated account in treasury bills as the last resort, which could be slightly less than $1, but with treasury bills, it seldom goes much less than that. And as you see, line 14, in no case shall the redemption result in the state paying a higher amount than the total assets in the Wyoming Stable Token Trust account divided by the number of outstanding Wyoming stable tokens after all expenses, etc. Pages 11 and on to 12 get to limitations of liability. It makes it very clear that the state is not on the hook for anything beyond the value of the trust account. The full faith and credit of the state of Wyoming is not on the line at any point. Only those dollars held in trust and limited by the value of that trust account at any given moment. Page 13 is implementation, calling on drafting rules and regulation, putting together the plans and working that through, providing some reports back. Bottom of page 14 is the $500,000 I mentioned, which is effectively the startup fund for the commission to get rolling, and then that would be repaid back to the general fund as revenue comes in as the first priority, and then effective dates. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill, and with that, I'd like to move to the standing committee amendments. Has that been read in?
It has not been read in.
Well, let's do it.
Let's read it in.
Senate File 127, Standing Committee Amendment Number 1, page 4, line 14, after.
Senator Rothfuss.
Mr. Chairman, I move Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 127. There were a couple of concerns and good catches that the Minerals Committee made to improve this, so I certainly support the Standing Committee Amendment. The first was a point that only subject matter experts who are free from conflict of interest in performing the duties of the board shall be appointed to or serve on the board or commission. That's a key point. There was also a desire to have that initial report come to the Minerals Committee, not just the Blockchain Select Committee. So that was added in the middle paragraphs. And then a couple of tweaks that were language, that was cleanup language on lines 16 through 20 of the amendment that were LSO catches. With that, if there are no questions on the Standing Committee amendment, I'd call for the question.
Questions? Any questions? All those in favor of Senator Rothfuss's motion to adopt Standing Committee Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 127, please say aye. Any opposed, no. That amendment has passed. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We've put a lot of work into this in the Blockchain Select Committee. It's a golden opportunity. I hope that you'll join me in supporting it. If you have any questions about the nuances, how this works, anything else, I'm happy to answer those, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate any of my cohort from the Blockchain Select Committee joining me to answer questions as we move forward. Thank you.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, let me start out by asking one fundamental question. Article 1, Section 10, United States Constitution. No state shall enter into, and goes on, no state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Have you got legal opinion that we do not violate that provision of the United States Constitution with this act?
Okay, any further questions? Senator Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too had questions on Article 1, Section 10, but I want to also add, does this conflict with U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5? Does our state have the authority to kind of quote-unquote coin money? What benefit is this token? And I mean, no disrespect when I ask this, is this like a fair token where you come in, you pay $1 or $5 and you get 5 tokens? And then the value of the dollar, does this token follow the value of the dollar? So if the dollar is not worth $1, is the token not worth $1? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rothfuss, that's a couple for you right there that you might want to get out of the way.
Absolutely, excellent. And very good questions, and certainly topics that have been widely discussed on the Select Committee. Getting to the first 2 questions, which are about coining and minting through the U.S. Constitution. There is no question that the state of Wyoming is not able to create a new currency, coin a currency, mint coins, anything along those lines. So this was a significant topic of discussion that we had. It's the reason why I very carefully emphasized the language of what the token is. So it is not a new coin. It is not a new currency. It is a digital representation of a US dollar, which is the value. It is the US dollar. That's the value. That dollar is held in trust by the state of Wyoming so that you can use a digital representation of it. The dollar is the value. The dollar was coined by the US government. In the dollar lies the value, and there is nothing intrinsically valuable beyond the dollar to the to the Wyoming stable token. Without the dollar, the Wyoming stable token is valueless. So that was the construct that we put together to ensure that we were compliant with the US Constitution, which obviously we take very seriously. In addition to that, we have a provision at the bottom of page 13, the B paragraph. And that is a second test on this to ensure that we're constitutionally compliant. And you see it says the Attorney General shall monitor the startup phase of the issuance of the Wyoming stable token to ensure it is permissible under federal and state law. And basically, is it compliant along all steps with our constitutional requirements and our legal obligations with statute? If, after assessing available legal options, the Attorney General determines that issuing a Wyoming stable token is not permissible under either federal or state law, the Commission shall not issue a Wyoming stable token, and the Director shall provide a report. So we want to make sure that the Attorney General's office feels comfortable with all steps also in the constitutionality of it moving through the process. They have the authority to effectively push the pause button and say, no, this isn't going to work. And that's by design for the purpose that we discussed. As to the benefit of the token and related to the dollar value of it, It is always worth exactly $1, the dollar held in trust. If the value of the dollar, so to speak, from a purchase power parity standpoint decreases due to inflation, the dollar of the token has to decrease with it because it is simply a representation of that dollar. If it went up in value, it would then be a security. It would change everything. It would be coining something new. It would be an entirely different structure. It is essential that it only be representative of that dollar, or we are outside of our lane, and pretty much every federal agency would come down upon us with thunder and lightning, as they should. I hope that it answers the questions as raised. Thank you.
Further questions on 127, Senator Ide?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the bringers of the bill, just a question on the implications, I guess, or if there's a provision in there that denies any federal agencies of censuring or sanctioning this coin. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, further questions? Senator Furphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minority Floor Leader, I'm big on this whole concept. I think it makes a lot of sense. My question is just operationally, how's this going to work? So if a customer wants these digital coins, I assume we're making it available to what we approved, the Speedy Banks or any bank, and I assume there's no prohibition on any of those banks charging fees to issue this digital currency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a great step. It's the next step in our blockchain development for the work that's been done over the past few years. It puts Wyoming at the very forefront as we move into this globalized banking systems that are out there, so we can make instantaneous payments from all over the globe, and it brings that business to Wyoming. We're constantly looking for ways to diversify. This is a great one. It puts the work that Wyoming has done in the whole blockchain development system right out into front, where it continues to make us the leader. So honor for the bill, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Let's go to Senator Hicks, and then we'll come back to you, Senator Rothfuss.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do think that we've taken a strong leadership role and led the nation on this, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that we've had numerous digital currencies collapse. We've seen billions of dollars of fraud. So the question is, and it's because we got ahead of the regulatory agencies, SEC, Treasury, and the whole thing. Where are we vulnerable right now from a regulatory compliance? So where are our vulnerabilities within the current system right now? Because that's my number one concern, that we're so far out in front that we have some potential regulatory holes that could ultimately relate in some level of fraud or collapse. But just a little explanation as to how are we protected from that?
Thank you, Senator Hicks. Let's go one more time. Senator Rothfuss, back to Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good questions. So it's important to recognize the difference of maybe what you've seen in the national news regarding the collapse of some of these different types of crypto-related companies and their offerings. And oftentimes, some of those crypto-related offerings are considered securities, like shares and stocks, and those are regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission. The Wyoming Stable Token Act is not a security. It's acting like a currency, but really isn't a currency, which sounds a bit deceptive. Remember, it's a representation of currency. So you're essentially saying, I have $5 here, and this coin represents $5. And I'm going to give it to you representing $5. It's always going to be the value of those T-bills, and it will never vary from that. So it's just a representation as a way of transacting business. And importantly for Wyoming, and why it's an interesting concept here or of value here, is it can generate revenue to the state by those who are interested in purchasing a coin, a token, virtual currency, to use with those entities that buy and trade in virtual currency. And so that's its value as a revenue generator, but it is not a currency that would be regulated by any of the feds. To go to the senator from Natrona County's concern, it really is just this representation of money that Wyoming would be governing the rules associated with who owns it and how that record keeping is made and how fees may be generated from it.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and further talking about that question of vulnerabilities. From business point of view, I see two potential vulnerabilities with anything like this. First, you've got the risk that probably through some fraud or something, somebody will be able to redeem a bunch of tokens that aren't real and bust the system that way. The blockchain accounting seeks to prevent that, but in case something goes wrong there, the business of the full faith and credit of the state of Wyoming not being at risk here is very important and limits our risk so that really it's limited to the one appropriation to startup funds. So I think that's an important protection there. The other risk that we've seen in the market, and we should expect in the market, is that you'll get a run on one of these tokens, and that has happened to the private ones. We are protected against that by the redemption provisions, so that if we get a run, we don't spend out more than there is. And I think those protections should be adequate to prevent a run. And I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in addition, our investment portfolio is essentially going to be continuously available and published, and people can see how much is outstanding and what's behind it. And frankly, I think those ought to prevent a run. Mr. Chairman, those were the questions I had. They were covered in the presentation, and I talked to the proponent offline earlier. I think they've done a good job of dealing with the business risks and limiting our risks to it. And I think Wyoming may be in a fairly unique position that I don't see any private firm able to match. I think long-term, if the US Treasury puts out a digital currency, that might be a competitor, but I think we'll make significant money before that happens. They grind slowly. So, Mr. Chairman, I will say I'm on and for this bill. I think the work's been, I think it's quite creative, and I think it's been done well. And, Mr. Chairman, I would also make one suggestion to the proponents. When I was chairman of Committee of 10, on a number of occasions, we did things that were going to cause contracts through the state contracting system. And, Mr. Chairman, we learned the hard way that the state contracting system is slow, cumbersome, and not designed to get good work done. And I think, frankly, I think it's responsible for a number of the failures we've had in the computer systems at the state level. What we did is, on several occasions, mostly with time concerns in mind, was to exempt particular provisions we were passing from the state contracting system. This is a quasi-state agency. Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that maybe a precaution worth taking is to exempt the needs here, because you're going to need to buy some software, Mr. Chairman, develop some software, probably unique software. And I would suggest exemption from the state contracting system may be essential to get this done in a timely fashion and get it done competently.
Senator Rothfuss, we've got a couple of questions on the floor. I want to give you an opportunity to get back to a couple of senators, and then we'll go to Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, appreciate that. Starting with the last point of the suggestion of amendment for contracts and ensuring that we have the capacity to sort of work at the speed of business as opposed to the speed of government. I think that's wise counsel, and we can look at that for a second reading amendment to provide the flexibility for contracting appropriate vendors to kind of get things done. So I appreciate that. To the good tall senator's points, he's spot on with all of his analysis about the protections that were put in place, and this gets at the majority floor leader's question. Most of the vulnerabilities that are out there and the problems that have happened because there isn't regulatory oversight. Nobody's regulating, and the products themselves, the underlying technology is not bad from the technology standpoint. It's bad from the implementation, oversight, and auditing standpoint. So you can get away with it. It's 1928 Wall Street kind of concepts. If nobody's watching you, you can do some pretty sketchy things. One of the key priorities of the Select Committee and the Task Force over the years has been what we call regulate to enable rather than regulate to restrict. The good companies want regulation. They just don't want to be stopped from implementing the business plan, but they want the oversight because they know that's the key to the credibility of their operation. This, again, is the same type of product where it will be transparently backstopped by Treasury bills that will be under continuous audit capacity. The oversight will be by a state commission associated with the state of Wyoming. Very likely the treasurer will be purchasing and selling the T-bills that are going along with this. That transparency is the key to avoiding what we saw with, for example, Terra Luna, which was an algorithmic stable coin that collapsed. It had no underlying value. There was no asset backing it. It was your faith in it. And when there was a run on it, as the good tall senator said, there was nothing backing it realistically that you could run against. With a Wyoming stable token, there's the dollars behind it. A run is against real dollars. There's an underlying asset. So as our junior senator representing us back in DC noted, what we've seen in recent news headlines wouldn't have happened in Wyoming and couldn't have happened in Wyoming because we actually have a regulatory structure that governs digital assets. Not many people or not many jurisdictions otherwise do. With regard to how this would operate and how would it be made available to my good colleague from the Select Committee and also from Albany County, issuance fees, banks, it would be fungible and issuable. There would certainly be opportunities for exchanges and other entities to have transaction fees associated with it. That's one of the things you can do very well with a blockchain, with contracts, is first of all, the baseline fee of transaction is tiny little decimal dust. So we're used to 3% for a credit card transaction. These transactions can occur for fractions of cents regardless of the amount of value that's being transferred. But then that allows a lot of business opportunity for exchanges and transactions and to really build products around that system. So there's a lot of upside to that. With regard, again, to the federal agencies and denying the federal agencies from censure, sanctions, or overreach, regrettably, to the good senator from Natrona County, when the federal agencies step in, they tend to assert their primacy, and we're dealing in the Speedy Bank, the Special Purpose Depository Institution realm right now with adverse decisions by the Federal Reserve. I don't see where those would come in this instance. We don't have to appeal to an agency. But we certainly are concerned with our partners at the federal level, which is part of why we ensured, Mr. Chairman, that the Attorney General's office would be engaged to ensure that we were federally compliant as well as state compliant. I think that catches us up to date. I'm happy to answer any more questions that are out there and appreciate my colleagues stepping in.
Senator Cooper, and then we'll go to Senator Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the most important parts of this thing is the privacy that it's going to bring to the businesses as they're out there trading globally or nationally. You know, if you like the service of the U.S. Post Office, you're going to love when the Treasurer gets involved in a central bank system for us. If the good, quiet, shy senator from the ivory tower could expound on that for just a little bit for us.
Senator Hutchins.
Mr. Chairman, the good senator from Laramie knows that I have a problem with this. And I'd like to get a few more questions answered. How can regulation prevent fraud, counterfeit, or hacking? Since there's nothing tangible here, can you tell me what the coin looks like? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you. I'll start with the good senator from Laramie County's questions and then go back to our first question regarding central bank depository coins, et cetera, or digital currencies, excuse me. So with regard to what these look like and the fraud and the counterfeiting, the feature, a core feature of blockchain that we've talked about for a number of years is its resistance to fraud and its resistance to counterfeiting. That's its core feature. The current financial system is far, far more appealing to fraudulent behavior and counterfeiting and false claims and redundant requests for the same dollars. It is widely understood that frequently dollars are counted multiple times, leveraging assets, and that creates risk to consumers when you have what's called rehypothecation, where a dollar is counted a couple of times in a crediting institution as an asset, and that leads to unnecessary risk that really results in things like the 2008-9 collapse. With blockchain, and again, the stable token would be on a blockchain, so the transactions would be definitive and authoritative, and the technology that underlies it with the distributed cryptographic nature of a blockchain ensures that you can't double spend or counterfeit. So when you have a coin, you know who owns that coin, you know when they got that coin, you know the moment it's sold, if you look at the blockchain, who that coin is transferred to. Those are transparent transaction ledgers that provide easy access and kind of authoritative confirmation of what is taking place. Contrast that with our existing system, where even you don't necessarily know when your credit card was used for a little while afterwards. There's no way for you to check. I mean, you're going to ask your banking institution, and you're going to hope that their databases have appropriately reflected it. And then we have the impression that when we make an electronic transaction, that happens instantaneously, Mr. Chairman. That is very far from the truth. A digital transaction with US dollars through the Federal Reserve System seems at its surface to be very rapid, but the underlying machinations are incredibly slow, uncertain, and very anachronistic. This moves that forward and really improves both the potential for transparent transactions as well as the integrity of those transactions, so it is fraud resistant as opposed to fraud likely. Getting back to the concept of contrasting from the good senator and looking at central bank digital currencies, that's another concept that is out there. And the idea there is that the Federal Reserve of the United States, for example, could issue on blockchain a digital dollar. And it is investigating that. That's a plan. That's something that will very likely happen at some point, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how many years it will be until we get there. I tend to estimate 5, 7, 8, somewhere in that ballpark. The European Union is looking at implementing a digital euro. So it behaves exactly as we've discussed, except for it has the intrinsic value as the coin itself. So it is the dollar as opposed to representing the dollar, so to speak, if it's a central bank coin. One of the reasons why that's not happening soon, though, is what the feds want to do. Our federal government, in contemplating this issuance, wants full reversibility, full control, full denial, and basically the capacity to do anything they want with your money as the current banking system can do with your money. And that's actually one of the values of the Wyoming stable token is there is that independence, and it assuages that fear that people have about a central bank digital currency where there still is the pseudo-anonymity of a cryptocurrency. When I say pseudo-anonymity, it is plausible and even reasonable to track someone based on their operations on a blockchain. They're all open, public, transparent for the blockchains that we would be using. But it's anonymous until you announce who you are or until there's a link between you and the account. So that's the pseudo-anonymity. And just for completeness, you can have blockchains that are truly anonymous. We would not use those at this point, certainly through this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rothfuss. We're going to move to the question. If there are no more questions, are you ready for a question on Senate File 127? All those in favor of Senator Dockstadter's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises a report, it do so with a favorable recommendation on Senate File 127, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Senate File 127 is passed Committee of the Whole. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Committee of the Whole beg leave to rise and sit again.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Is that Senator Dockstader coming forward? All right. Take it away.
Mr. Floor Leader.
Senator, I move that we stand in recess until 2 p.m.
Announcements? Go ahead.
Senator Dockstader. So when you come back, we're going to move a few of these bills around on the board, so make sure you check. We've got a member that's missing that's got a couple of bills up, and I'm just going to move those down rather than lay them back. So make sure when you come back from lunch, you check where you see. We're going to stay with those first 2 or 3, but then down the list it will move associated with that. So make sure you check on that when you come back in.
Check the list when you're back from lunch. Chairman Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Your Committee 1 Judiciary, this reminder that we will be meeting in the morning at 8 a.m. Downstairs in W4 to take up 2 bills, Senate File 181, drug-induced homicide, and Senate File 161, parental rights, repealing conflicting statute. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Good Committee Agriculture number 5 will meet today upon adjournment in Capitol Extension Room 2 to consider Senate File 107, Acquisition, Exchange, and Sale of Trust Lands, Senate File 126, Barbering and Cosmetology Practice Amendments, and Senate File 138, Unemployment Insurance Coverage Period and Reporting.
Chairman Baldwin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, will meet tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. at Capitol Room 6 and online to hear a caffeine-fueled 115 Senate File, Wyoming Prescription Drug Transparency Act. There'll be no further public testimony. We'll work the bill only. followed by Senate File 162, Grace Smith Medical Freedom Act, completion by Senate Joint Resolution 10, Right and Healthcare Access.
Chairman Weidman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet today, Tuesday, January 23rd at 12:30 in Capitol Extension Room W6 and online to take up the following 3 bills. Senate File 159, Stop ESG, Eliminate Economic Boycott Act. Senate File 172, Stop ESG, State Funds Fiduciary Duty Act. And Senate Joint Resolution 13, Legislative and Executive Authority, Taxation and Spending. Probably won't be back by 2 o'clock, but we'll get back here as soon as our work is done, sir. Thank you.
Send out somebody to find you if you're not back. Okay, you've heard any more announcements? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The Senate will stand in recess until 2 p.m.